millions of people are turning to platforms like ChatGPT and asking it for therapy, for advice. If you go into an AI companion, one of the more popular ones like Character AI, and it has over 522 million times that it has been used. So people are turning to AI for therapy.
What makes us so special? And why isn't AI just simply going to replace us all? That's why I'm sitting down with educators, researchers, and practitioners to have an open and honest discussion about the human impact of AI. I'm Doug Atkinson, and join me for the human conversation. Dr. Marina Badillo-Diaz, thank you for being here. You are the founder of the AI Social Worker, which is a fascinating name for an organization. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. So yes, I am the founder of the AI Social Worker, which is a free platform for social workers to integrate AI into their practice ethically and responsibly. And so part of my work is, a lot of content creation on LinkedIn and also on the website and Instagram to provide this information for social workers. But I am also a trainer. So I have had the privilege of training over 6,000 social workers across the US and Canada. I've grown also to do a training in South Africa as well too, to help social workers not only understand this technology, but also help it in their practice as well too. I'm also a professor, so I'm teaching a couple of classes on AI and mental health, and also just on general AI and social work practice too at NYU and also at the University of Tennessee. And I'm also squeezing in some research as well too. So I am doing some research on how school social workers are utilizing AI in their practice. My previous focus of my career was in school social work. So I have a very deep interest in the intersection of mental health and AI for social work practice as well too, alongside with teaching.
Well, so let's take all those in small bites. So first things first, how do you see AI having a positive impact on social work?
I definitely see a positive impact, and the reason being is because, like other human service professions, we are very much plagued with burnout, compassion fatigue, because a lot of the work that we do as social workers, we have high caseloads. We're constantly at the demand of not only having to work directly with communities and clients, but then are often bogged down with a lot of paperwork and administrative work. And so that's why when I started using ChatGPT in the spring of 2023, I was like, this is going to change the game for the profession. I mean, I'm able to get so many items on my to-do list done. It's really helping me be able to write and draft reports, documents in a matter of seconds, where this was taking me hours before. And, I come from not only from school social work practice, but the beginning of my profession, I was working in community mental health, had scheduled 11 clients a day, back to back, to provide therapy, and yet still expected to write those progress notes to submit to the insurance company within 24, 48 hours. So to keep up with the paperwork was quite exhausting. And now we have AI scribes that are just helping clinicians write their notes within a matter of a couple of seconds. They get a full draft. I always say it's really important to read over the notes to make sure there's no mistakes or any errors, because the clinician, the social worker is still responsible for that note. However, it's certainly very much time saving, and I'm hearing social workers say, "I'm just able to get time back." Right? I was taking so much work home, and now because of these tools, I'm able to get a lot of work done more efficiently. And another area I think that's really helpful too is just improving creativity and providing services. I think AI is a great thought partner for social workers to get a better understanding of maybe different treatment ideas, or a way to sort of incorporate different modalities of treatment, providing psychoeducation material, so they're now able to better provide those services to their clients in a meaningful way. Because I always talk about how it really needs to be human centered. Social workers know their client best, and we can take AI as a tool to really improve the services that we provide, but really remaining human at the center with that too.
Well, so that's interesting. So it's been my experience as well that it is a great thought partner.
Mhm,
that AI provides you with access to deeper context for ideas. So it
mhm.
pulls in ideas and gives you a deeper
Yes.
description of those ideas. And I would assume,
Mhm.
given the vast knowledge of different, social work relevant information, that is a huge value. But then you're
Mhm.
also saying that basically it's just a straight up better note taker, or just a more efficient note taker, and as a result you can just crank out more support information.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing from clinicians too and social workers that when they get the response from the AI scribe of their note, it's also even deepening their practice because they actually are reflecting on, "Oh, I didn't realize, like, I used that intervention in the session and the AI tool picked up on it." So it's even been a kinda space where it's not just about copying and pasting. I really hope and hearing from other clinicians too that it's even deepening practice because now you have more time to even be reflective on the clinical services and the work that you're providing because you're saving time on the note, but then you're able to really reflect on and deepen your own learning. Again, when it's used with intentionality and not just a quick, copy and paste and then moving on to the next. I think we really need to, as social workers, be really deeply reflective in our practice.
And so are you finding that in your experience that social workers are adopting this technology as a collaborator and time saver, at a rate that you would expect, or is there some lag or some suspicion or maybe a little concern with regard to
Yeah.
whether it's going to work?
All of the above, all of the above, and I would say certainly in the beginning, and I can recall very specific conversations I had. I started these talks and these trainings in the fall of 2023, hearing from social workers, "This is unethical, we should not be using AI," to, "This is a waste of time, the response that you get from ChatGPT just is wonky and is not making any sense," to now where I find the conversation in the field is a lot more open, a lot more like, "Oh, I should have been doing this, months or years ago, like, this is I can't believe I'm just, being open to this right now." Again, and there's still some that are like, "You know what? I recognize now I just can't avoid this, so I'm gonna have to learn this," because the other area of this conversation is not just how social workers as practitioners use this technology, but our clients are using AI, and they're using AI chatbots, and they're bringing that into conversation. They're also relying on it for their own mental health needs and supports, and so the conversation I think now is also turning to, well, my client's using AI, and I need to sort of figure this out because they're talking about it in their session, and I need to know, what's going on here.
Let's pivot toward that, because that
Mhm.
is certainly something I've been hearing about, and
Yes.
certainly there's some concern that's been
Mhm.
voiced with
Mhm.
regard to people using AI for
Yeah.
effective therapy.
Mhm.
And AI certainly has a kind of tendency to be sycophantic.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so what is happening at the ground level there? I mean, are you seeing more and more people in between sessions chat GPT or any other LLM
Yeah.
as a therapist?
Yes. This is such a, again, great question. And I just want to share, all the things. So I think first, yes, and even the data is showing that too, right? Millions of people are turning to platforms like ChatGPT and asking it for therapy, for advice. If you go into an AI companion, one of the more popular ones, like Character AI, they have, and I say character like therapists because they're not real therapists, but there's a character there that's labeled as a therapist on Character AI, and it has over 522 million times that it has been used. So people are turning to AI for therapy. Now, I'm gonna talk about the concerns, and I'm also gonna talk about the possibilities because I wanna recognize that people are turning to AI chatbots for therapy because it's accessible, right? It's available 24/7. If you're struggling with insomnia in the middle of the night or if you're having a panic attack in the middle of the day, you could just literally just go onto your chatbot and immediately get relief, answers, and because
Well,
it's
and it
it's
has to be
yeah,
resonate, right? I mean, I would assume it resonates with people that they're
yes.
getting an answer that
Mhm.
is holding together and is cogent and
Mhm.
helpful.
Yes, and so I think on one hand, I know that's what's driving the motivation behind it, and also people may not have access to a therapist, right? I wanna recognize that it costs money, insurance, and so there certainly are barriers to access to care, which is also a real concern, and that's why people are turning to AI chatbots. And then on the flip side, what I think about is, well, character AI, ChatGPT, these are not HIPAA compliant platforms, and people across the globe are sharing such vulnerable information with open AI. So that's like one of my concerns is all the testing of the data and information. Also, open AI is not a mental health, company. Their intention is not to provide, it's not trained for therapeutic supports. Now there are therapeutic platforms out there, and I'm gonna get that in a few. But I think that's some of the real concerns is just sort of the data privacy around that. And then also as well, we know that people have been dying by suicide because of their conversations with character AI, and then also with, ChatGPT. And, those most vulnerable with some mental health issues and concerns are turned to these AI chatbots, and they just don't have the safety and guardrails in place. So, and I think that's why there's been a push on legislation across the country to not only hold these companies accountable, but to embed, safety guardrails. I come from New York State. We currently are proposing a bill with Senator Kristen Gonzalez that is not only about uh, claiming that AI chatbots can't do therapy, so they can't be claiming to do therapy, but also that there's guardrails where every so many minutes, if there's a message that's said to the consumer, reminder you're talking to an AI chatbot, not a human. So, but I do see that there's opportunity in this area as well. There's a few companies out there that are doing really due diligent research, evidence-based work of using AI technology for therapeutic supports. And so one of those platforms is WISA, WYSA, and they've been around for a couple years, even before ChatGPT. It is an evidence-based tool that is built with CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, in it, and it's free. It's free for consumers, and it's used in over 100 countries around the globe. And there's over 45 published articles on this platform where people can turn to it for advice if they're having a panic attack. It will do a mediation, no, sorry, a relaxation, and it will do a mood meter, a journaling activities, problem solving, coping skills. So, and research is showing that it can be very helpful in reducing depression, anxiety, alongside with used in traditional, with therapy. But they also recognize that there's waiting lists and things like that. So this is certainly a much safer alternative because there is more security measures built into the platform as well, where platforms like Character AI and ChatGPT just don't have that built into it.
It's fascinating. I just Googled AI chatbot therapist,
Mhm.
and there is a thing called Ear Kick. Abby, your AI therapist.
Yes.
Stanford has an article about exploring the dangers, but
Mhm.
ChatGPT has something called Therapy AI. Character AI is on here. Claude has somebody recommending Claude. The latest
Mm.
model of Claude is, by far and away, has the most psychological nuance. I mean, this feels like
Yeah.
inevitable that there is going to be
Yeah.
solutions, and honestly, it feels like it might be a good thing. But to your point, it has to be done with all kinds of deeper
Yeah.
professional direction.
Yeah, deeper guardrails and safety. Because again, the nuance of people being suicidal or, coming with real concerns, these chatbots really need to be trained on how to address that. And so we're seeing now better responses from, let's say, like ChatGPT. If you type in that you are suicidal, it will respond back with crisis hotlines to connect with a real human. So they are putting more safety measures in place. Unfortunately, because of the response of unfortunate, dying by suicide. But the other clinical concern too is that there's something that we're calling called AI psychosis, where people are believing the this altered reality of their chatbot. So, For instance, we know that AI chatbots are designed to be positively responding, right? That kind of communication. And so it may say things like, and that's what happened to these unfortunate folks who have died
Right.
by suicide, is that they talk about, I'm suicidal, and the ChatGPT responds saying yes, and then talking about how to do it. And they feel like that's really real, and they can't distinguish the two.
Well, so again, it's only going to get more sophisticated. I mean, obviously the all of this interaction, if there are 500 million chats happening, all of that in
Yes.
theory would be
Mm.
ingested and trained into newer models. But secondarily, it feels to me anyway, as you start to see the synthetic presentation layer of um, for all intents and purposes, real human avatars, that eventually we will have a talking, human representation of a therapist, not just the words coming down in a chat, but being spoken directly to you through a screen.
Agreed. And, I think the other piece that's also coming up for me in this conversation too is, with these AI chatbots, what is this going to mean for the human relationship with artificial intelligence? I mean, people are spending hours on end. I don't know if you heard this in the news, but a couple weeks ago, New York had the first dating event where folks could, during Valentine's Day, that folks could bring in their AI companion to have a date with them at a real bar in New York City. And so it really sort of begs the question of, as we move forward, this sort of blurred line between AI and the human connection relationship. And my hope is that, AI tools, especially in the therapeutic space, can bridge more connections with humanity and human to human, right? That you could learn social skills or conflict skills, and you can learn how to, de-stress, but that we still maintain those sort of human connections. But people are replacing human connection with a chat bond. So what does that mean for romantic relationships, friendship relationships, and then adding another layer to this? Youth that are growing up today, AI chatbots are just going to be like the norm for them. That is going to be the status quo. I think of Gen Beta, those babies that are born after 2025, they're living in a world of AI companions and chatbots. So what is that going to mean for their social emotional development as they get older? And we just don't know yet, right? Because the data's not there. We're in it. And I'm often thinking about that.
Well, I'm often thinking about that as well, and it didn't take me long after I saw ChatGPT to be able to extend my thinking as to where this was headed, and that's ultimately why we started this podcast, why we
Mhm.
have kind of pushed Insight Jam toward this human impact
Mhm.
conversation, because in the end, we're my concern, and help me alleviate this maybe, is that we're incredibly primitive. We
Yeah.
For hundreds of thousands of years, we were
Yeah.
three-dimensional to one another, talking
Mhm.
across, for all intents and purposes, talking to one another, and that's
Yeah.
the only way our brains were developed. And now, just in the past 70 years, which is just a sliver of time in our evolution, we were presented with screens through television and movies, and now ultimately computers, and so we've started to present ourselves in two dimensions to one another, like we are right now, right? We're not
Right.
three-dimensional to one another, but yet I know you're human and you know I'm human, as far as we
Right, as
can
far as we
tell.
can tell, right? I am, I
Well,
promise.
but so our primitive brain, this is my
Mhm.
concern. Our primitive brain
Yeah.
still sees you as sitting across from the campfire from
Mhm.
me, in the cave, or however
Yes.
long, before screens. And so we will have no way, because in deep in our evolution, we just haven't evolved enough to be able to recognize this as anything but real, as a human, real as a human being across from me, sitting in the same
Mhm.
space,
Mhm.
because we just won't be able to recognize it, and we will not be able to evolve enough to get away from that, to be able to differentiate that reality.
I think already the data has shown with social media and young people how this has been detrimental to their mental health, depression, and anxiety. Now we're gonna be adding in, AI, misinformation, deep fakes, these AI chatbots. And so I think there's going to be a huge need for not just, social workers, but I think just also society as a whole, that we need to hold companies accountable. We need legislation. There's already Australia has led the way in banning social media for young people under the age of 16, because of the data and kind of seeing how this is negatively impacting youth. So I wonder, what that leads for the future of artificial intelligence and chatbots with young people, and certainly coming from a safety, protection sort of risk management lens. I think this conversation is going to be both. We need research, we need legislation, and we also need digital literacy in our schools to really teach young people about artificial intelligence. I think digital citizenship is going to be a key core skill that they're going to need as they navigate school and then going into the world of work. And I think our parents and our families need to be educated on how this technology is going to be impacting them. And I already know. I mean, families are so embedded with AI as it is, right? Alexa, Siri. I mean, how often do we talk to Alexa in our homes to do this, to do that, to help, right? I mean, it's just part of our family fabric of this technology. And so I don't see a world of no AI existing, but I think how do we rectify the two and make sure that humanity is safe and that our young people are not vulnerable to this technology.
Well, so I'm a sky is falling kind of guy, but
Yeah.
but but I'm
Yeah.
but I don't want to be that guy. And
Yeah.
and and so I don't necessarily
Mm.
want to automatically assume that all of this is necessarily going to be bad for kids, because I feel like a lot of kids are going to
Mhm.
be able to use this to accelerate their development over and
Yeah.
above what may be throttled
Yeah.
through kind of traditional education, because traditional education is a bit antiquated in that it's teaching to the mean or whatever, one to many, versus some of these exceptional kids who are feeling bored and
Mhm.
stifled.
Yes. Oh, I agree with you completely. So I do absolutely agree that in education, I do see that individualized learning through AI chatbot tutors, I think is going to be extremely helpful for young people. We on both ends, right? You have exceptional students that are gifted, that need the challenge and need individualized education to really help them excel. And then you also have students with special needs who need also that individuation, differentiation, and also just teaching to what works best for them to learn. And I think AI provides a lot of opportunity with that. And there's even schools who are piloting, an AI tutor block in their school day, that everyone is getting individualized learning. And I think, wow, an opportunity to really support and even help with accessibility of students with disabilities, not only to write, but also get some of these differentiated supports, communication. I think of students that have physical disabilities or intellectual disabilities that AI can be really, really helpful for with communication, and just in connection too, and even
Yeah,
completing.
this feels to me, and again, I want to recognize that it feels like this technology is happening so quickly that
Yes.
there is just no way government
Mhm.
and bureaucracies,
Mhm.
regardless of their best intention, can
Mhm.
can be nimble enough to respond correctly here. That they're
Mhm.
just not capable. That they will use overreach to try to control it and tamp down the exceptions. This is all to me. This is always the concern I have, is that it's the one suicide or the one kind of prominent bad thing that occurs yields this overwhelming response that is disproportionate to the singular bad thing that happened.
Mm.
So we over legislate against exceptions ultimately. And this is where I'm fascinated, because again, I think that's probably what's going to happen, is they're going to point to these point suicides or whatever it is as the worst case scenario, and therefore we need to go over the top with, whereas in reality it's probably best served if it bubbles up organically, these solutions, where teachers at the kind of ground level are able to have the freedom and the whatever it is, innovation, to to begin to create their own new programs that incorporate AI. It doesn't feel like the decision makers are at all in tune with this technology. They're all old. I mean, let's face it, most of
Yeah,
these government types are just, they're out of touch completely. They've been in government
yeah.
too long. They don't know what this technology is. They hear about it from some staff member. They never use it, and they're going to make decisions around it. It's
Yeah. I think, and I do appreciate you sharing your perspective. I think, going back to the suicidality and the chatbots, I know it's certainly been more than one case, and I do think that companies have a responsibility, and I do think the government plays a role in that to ensure public safety. I think also the access, and I think part of the issue was that young people are gaining access to this technology, and their brains are developing. They have vulnerabilities with their mental health, with disabilities, neurodiverse, and so they really understand and separate the two. So part of the advocacy was even having character AI was available for young people under the age of 18 because of the advocacy of parent groups. The company now has, starting this year, that they won't allow youth under the age of 18. Now, is that a perfect solution? I don't think that's a perfect solution, but I think we're moving in the direction that I think there has to be some type of balance between innovation and accessibility, and I think responsibility to those that are most vulnerable, like children, and even in the age of deep fakes. And we know that women are often targeted, children are targeted by pornography through generative AI. And we know now that there's millions of images being produced. And I think that warrants, certainly a government and legislative response. But I do wanna see also a balance of innovation and opportunities for companies in this technology to do tech for good. I mean, I'm on the same page with you. I don't really fully trust, companies to always do so. I think there's a real push of course, profitability, market, consumerism, and I think sometimes profits outweigh, right, some of the safety and guardrails and training that's sort of needed before this technology is deployed. But again, the technology is here. I think, like you said, sort of this is going to be resurfacing, and so we need to sort of respond to as these instances sort of occur. But I do see tech here for good, and also finding really creative solutions and using AI technology. So with crisis and mental health support. So an example of that, I know I mentioned Wiza earlier, but there's a company called Alongside, and Alongside uses AI technology with a chatbot. It is designed and clinically tested. There's a psychologist on the staff, and their chatbot is purchased by school districts across the country. And when the school district purchases it, parents have consent whether they want their child to opt in or opt out of the AI chatbot. But the AI chatbot is built and trained to provide social emotional support. It has SEL lessons in it, mood meters, journaling, different activities. And of course, they could turn to the chatbot for problems and concerns. And what I really appreciate about this company is that if a child is suicidal and types into the chatbot, I want to die, I want to kill myself, it flags the Alongside team, who then alerts the school based team to the counseling department, to the administrators, say this child's in crisis. They sent X, Y, and Z in the chatbot. So then the school-based team then deploy their human, wraparound services and assessments and crisis supports. So I think this is a really great human, right, AI sort of partnership with the company to really meet the need of a growing population who is struggling social emotionally. Our young people are. We want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure that they connect to humans when they are in crisis. But generally speaking, most of the students who are using these, you know, alongside, they're not in crisis, right? They find that they are actually talking about their sleeping problems or relationship problems, which is not surprising for young people that they're coping with at this stage. But if those real crisis situations arise, there's like a safety protocol in place, which I really appreciate.
Are young people in more crisis now than they have been?
That's an interesting question because I think every generation, right, the young people, there's always been like they're in crisis or they're struggling with their self-esteem or they're narcissistic. I think every sort of generation sort of pins on young people. But I do want to acknowledge, I think the technology that our young people have access to is just so different from generations before. I'm a millennial. I know growing up, it was the dawn of the internet and AOL and having to dial in. Social media didn't come into my world until high school. So I pretty much grew up, yes, with the internet, but it was very different without social media. And I think social media, and I think now AI chatbots are going to present similar struggles that I think teens are struggling with depression and anxiety, but now we have these other platforms that that can make it a lot worse, which I do think that our young people are struggling more with depression, anxiety, loneliness, and disconnection more than before.
They are. And so, and do you think that's a social media a result of the prevalence of social media now?
Yeah, I mean, social media and, and just technology. And I think also we are struggling with access to mental health. I think I mentioned this earlier. My previous role, I was a school social worker in schools. I was one school social worker for a middle school with hundreds of students. I just don't think that's adequate mental health support and care. We know that schools are a great place to provide supportive services for students, but we have more police officers and security officers and school counselors and school social workers. So if we know our young people are struggling, why not put more resources of having more social workers and school counselors on site to support our students and meet them where they're at and their families? But uh, the suggested number is 1 in 250. So one school counselor or school social worker for 250 students, and no state is even meeting that bare minimum requirement right now. So we are in a huge deficit
Well,
of providing.
now we can get to the sky is falling part
I don't want to
for
though.
me.
I want to read hopeful. I do.
Well, I want to get to the sky is falling part because
Yeah.
because my natural reaction to what you just
Yes.
said
Yeah.
is what you would think this technology is going to enable, which is let's just go get
Hmm.
therapy AI
Hmm.
dialed in, or what you described, whatever the technology is that you just described that schools can license, and we won't get humans. We'll
I
just
do.
get technology, and it'll come in the form of this perfected,
Hmm.
deep knowledge therapy model,
Yeah.
and it'll get better every time any kid uses it, and every time any student uses it, and it'll enable, as you said at the beginning of the episode, one therapist to be, you know, worth 250 therapists because they're so efficient now.
Yeah.
And so therapists start to get, honestly, human therapists start to get pushed to the side, and technology begins to act as the replacement for the human.
Yeah, and certainly in my conversations in in the field, this is absolutely coming up. Are we gonna be replaced by a chatbot? Is AI gonna replace therapy? And I think there's some schools of thought where the answer is yes, that the technology is gonna get so sophisticated that there won't be any need for human therapists. As I mentioned, I'd like to stay more optimistic and positive. I think there's gonna always be a need for human therapists to provide therapy. Now, is the pool gonna be as large as it is right now? I think even speaking with some colleagues, I think there are gonna be a percentage of people who find speaking to a chatbot is therapeutically helpful. They feel fulfilled and supported, and they don't need to connect with the human therapist. But I do think there's going to be a still an amount of a population who will still seek out therapeutic services. I think there's the nuance of the real human connection and relationship. There's just even the nuance of therapy where face to face, right? That you have the inflection of the nonverbal communication, the tone, just even that sort of healthy attachment that you build with your therapist through that relationship, that they find that's the vehicle what really evokes the change. Not so much whether it's CBT or DBT or narrative therapy, all the different set of modalities out there, that it really is the power of the therapeutic relationship is what drives change. And then also, I think people are gonna be addicted to their chatbots, and I think one of the treatment methods are gonna be talking to a human to address your addiction, and I think that's gonna also be on the rise. So I also see a trend that I think there's gonna be therapists who are gonna be specializing in, chatbot addiction and how to, treat that through a human, therapy relationship. So I wonder if there's gonna be even more specialty now, so not a complete replacement in the field, but even looking at some data that they've been kind of comparing some fields where automation is going to be less in psychologists and social workers and caseworkers rather than some other fields. But I know we're definitely going to be impacted by it too. And I definitely think there's going to be people who are going to be solely using AI chatbots for therapy and not seeking support with the human.
So if this proceeds the way I think it's going to proceed,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
and you're going to start to see things maybe not fully replace, but creep
Yeah.
in and start to replace
Mhm.
things. I think we're already seeing it in the computer sciences, where entry level coding jobs are now being replaced with the outputs from these LLMs and Claude Code and these other kind of very successful software development models. I'm curious about what you have to say about the anxiety and impact that that's going to have on young people as they begin to try to plan their
Future.
future and what
Yes.
they should be thinking about studying and what they shouldn't be studying when you are all of a sudden, after being told for years you should go into the STEM,
Right, right.
and now all of a sudden STEM seems to be the single most automated, because
Mhm.
it's so mathematical and binary that it can be
Yeah.
automated easier. I mean, what do we start to tell these kids that are going to be looking at school and having access to these powerhouse tools and saying, "Why do I need to know any of this?" I mean, I asked it when I was a kid. Why do I need to know this in math or English or whatever it was? I mean, we all asked that at some point in school. But now, I mean, to a certain degree, we were kidding ourselves, but now these kids,
It's
why
real.
do they need any of what is
Yeah.
traditional education at this point? What value is that going to have for them?
Yeah. This is such a great question. And, I certainly feel it, right? I mean, we are charged as educators, school counselors, school social workers, all of us that are working in K through 12 education, we are now in this sort of real shift and change, yet we don't know what that shift and change is going to look like exactly in 10 years. We have some idea predictions, and yet we have to prepare them, right? Our job is to prepare them for the world of work in 10 years to come. And yet we don't even know what that's even going to look like. And we're still like grappling with all these changes too, right? So, and I know the internet and that wave of revolution happened and that certainly changed it. But I do see that AI is obviously a bit more sophisticated with automation, being able to fully replace certain aspects of certain jobs. So I wonder, are there any new opportunities, new jobs coming out because of this technology? So the importance of still working in tech, but a different area of tech. I wonder if there's gonna be a drive to the humanities of human service work, human-centered work, uh, and just even critical I think about the need of 21st century skills of youth are definitely gonna need communication skills, critical thinking skills. They're gonna need adaptive skills to be able to pivot, to be able to I think sustainability is gonna be a key thing in the future of, like, how are we gonna make sure that we're gonna sustain the planet? And then, of course, there's these sort of ideas of a universal, income. I wonder if society is gonna move into that space in the future, because of automation and this technology. I don't wanna rule that out completely, but I just wonder, again, the same thing like you, like, what are gonna be the jobs that are gonna be, available for young people? But I do think there's gonna be core skills that they're gonna need to learn and know, and I already recognize there's a huge disparity right now of education and access to education. And this is just true in like the global south, the global north. And I worry that this technology is going to just increase disparity in access, right? And I hope this technology could be used to close the gap and increase access, especially for the global south, especially for communities in the United States of communities of color and underprivileged and underserviced communities that can AI be used to really help close the gap. But my worry is it going to just reinforce it that these schools are not going to have the same access level, same education? Are they going to be taught to not really taught to think critically with AI, but that they're just gonna use AI for them and that their education quality is gonna diminish. And that's sort of I know we don't wanna just go so negative, but that's sort of where I'm sort of struggling right now too with what the quality of education is going to be.
Right. And I think we're going to have this challenge of I think of some nations, using this technology to further themselves, and other nations that won't have as much access to this technology that will fall behind. But I also think that the innovations that will come from this technology can be easily extended, and the
Yes.
efficiency at which they're
Mhm.
extended will provide,
Yes.
I would argue, infrastructure, medicine. I mean, when you think about, kind of, the traditional kind of Doctors Without Borders extensions of, modern Western medicine to places that may not necessarily have it as well, this will be a huge benefit, that we will
Mhm.
be able to extend modern Western medicine to the extent that it proves to be valuable to everywhere. And so I think there will be certainly some upside, but there's no question
Yeah.
that there's going to be inequity here. Well, so I want to dive into this idea that we are going to start to get replaced.
Mm.
And what does that begin to look like in terms of the psychological impact? So my concern is that, to your earlier point,
Mm.
the money that is available to be earned by LLMs is obvious. The most valuable segments will be replacing people, and
Mhm.
that companies won't be able to resist because you'll be able to automate the entire 11th floor of a
Right.
company with
Right.
a subscription to a bunch of things, some collection
Yeah.
of agents.
Right.
And
Right.
and those people will, what they used to do will just be automated away, and those people will be removed, like the typing pool of
Mhm.
days of old, that where, you just don't need typists anymore because you now have word processing, and ultimately, there were just no more typewriters. So when that begins to happen, and you have people who have no more, and they're in and this is going to happen at every level.
Yes.
You're going to
Well,
talk, I mean,
yeah.
therapists,
Yeah.
college professors,
Yeah.
at every level, of people who never thought they would be touched. They're
Right.
going to be reduced in value
Mhm.
by this thing that is just simply better at
Yeah.
at at, at thought, at output, at efficiency. And capitalism won't be able to resist incorporating it, because capitalism doesn't care.
Right.
In the end, it's driven by profit by its nature.
Right.
Um, and so people will begin to struggle. This is where I think the psychological impact is going to be greatest. People are going to begin to struggle with the fact that they are no longer adding value at all in a
Mhm.
society. It's not
Mhm.
even that they can't earn money. It's
Right.
that the way they earn money is going to be reduced to some sort of basic function, like bartending. Like, well,
Mhm.
and I don't denigrate it. I was a bartender, enjoyed it greatly, but that you are a college professor now who can no longer be paid as a thought
Right.
leader,
Right.
so you become a server, or you treat your treat. I had my blood drawn by somebody who used to be an interior designer the
Mm.
other day, who told me all about how they had to pivot out of that because they couldn't make. And so
Yeah.
you'll have to pivot to something that you may not necessarily,
Yeah.
just in order to survive.
I I hear you. I think this creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern, and I think that's gonna be the key, right? That I think the resiliency that people are gonna now need in the face of this change. I mean, every technological revolution, there had to be resiliency of people needing to pivot. I think it's gonna be the same here, maybe even at a larger scale, and I think that needs to be the balance of, yes, the individual of being able to pivot, support systems. This is gonna be really important, be able to pivot to a new skill, a new area of the workforce. I think it might be even a return to more human service, right, facing positions, right, that can't be necessarily automated. So I definitely see that happening. And then, as I mentioned earlier too, like the exploration of the welfare state around having a universal income if it gets to that point. Because I think at the same time, having a full society of people who are not working is not good for anyone's mental health and well-being, and just financial viability to survive in this world that is also quite costly in the United States and other places around the world too. So I think this is going to be a real, and that's why we need to have these humanity conversations across disciplines, because this is a real problem that we need to solve in the future and now.
I think we're gonna end up right back to the Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal, where the way they dealt with the Depression,
Yeah.
when there was no social safety net and all these people were unemployed and they were literally incapable of delivering value, and value was delivered differently then. But what the government set out to do was create massive projects
Yeah, infrastructure, great, frame.
that, built amazing things, but it not only put money in the pockets of the unemployed, it gave people purpose. A massive project. They were part of a bigger thing. It provided them with a certain, and I don't want to sleep on that. There is a intrinsic value. I don't know what you know better about it than I do, of just knowing that you're valuable in society. It's not even the dollars you earn. It's the
Yeah.
fact that you,
Being a productive member of society, that you're pursuing a passion, that you are part of a community. All this is really, really important to the mental well-being of humans. I agree with you. I think it's really going to shift what that's going to look like in the future. And we have to have these conversations now, preparing for that. And I think kind of going back to your young people, right? Like, we're grappling with this as adults, and how young people are now going to be facing that in a new frontier of society, and what that's gonna look like. It's gonna impact a lot of people. I
well, and
agree.
to your point about the kid in the 6th grade right now who has been using this for 3 years, but is going to use it for another 6, and all that's coming from that
Mhm.
advancement over those 6 years, and then they're going to be asked to go to college and pay 200 or $300,000 to spend 4 more years
Mhm.
to get
Mhm.
what in 10
Yeah,
years? What job? And how do you, and
very
so what happens, this is the thing for me, that
yeah.
if I'm properly at predicting how the
Yeah.
sky falls because education falls apart, because there's no need to go to college, and so the entire higher education system comes undone at once. And literally you have some of the brightest minds on the planet no longer employable
Mm.
because there's nobody to teach.
Yeah. I wonder too if there's gonna be a shift, that it's gonna be more around vocation and trade. There's gonna be specific trade and vocation, that so that higher education would still exist, but it would just look differently. I'm trying to imagine, and I think that's gonna be one of the asks of us as we move through the move forward to the age of AI, is what could we reimagine society and education to look like? What do we place value on? What's gonna really matter most? The well-being of everyone is gonna be really, really important. And how do people still have purpose? How do still people have a sense of still learning, still engaging, still being in community? And I know there's the vocational sector. There's certainly areas of higher ed that I think are gonna shift and change, but maybe there will be a leaning into humanities as we move forward. That's my prediction, but I know time will certainly tell,
Well,
what's to
eh,
come.
but
Yeah.
who pays them to be, I mean, the humanities earning what? I mean, doing what? What is the value of being in the humanities
I think there's
to a
still gonna
business?
be I think there's still gonna be, like, a human need of I mean, there's gonna still need human oversight over artificial intelligence. I don't think we can leave it entirely to the machines and I think of my example of even just social work, so this is kinda how I see it. So, an example in social work, there are platforms and programs that, using algorithmic predictive analytics, that you can type in, say, for the housing industry, that you are working in a shelter or in a housing community, that you can type in the client's information, the situation, that information gets into the algorithm and then spits out, here are the services, here's like the need, here's the decisions of their next steps in their sort of care that they qualify for. So you are, in a sense, seeing what the AI algorithm is going to give you a decision on, but that there's still human oversight in that decision, where there's still a social worker oversight and care, because we know there's bias inherently in algorithmic, predictive analytics. We don't want to leave the entirety up to machines to run our welfare system, because there could be real just perpetuating the bias and inequity is just going to be reenacted if we leave it to the systems to run on themselves and make those decisions. So I do see there's going to be a need for humanity to be embedded within this technology. It just might not be as many as there are right now, but I do see the field of social work going to be moving in that direction of and even in child welfare, this is very similar too, of child welfare predictions with artificial intelligence, case management services that they're, again, finding resources, information, but there's still that algorithmic bias that you still need the human within the loop of that kind of process. But there'll be less humans, like you said, that will be needed for this.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating,
Mm.
and again, it feels to me like there is a need for people to not only be able to share
Mhm.
their concerns, but also share their wins or their innovation or their good ideas that they are gaining traction with. I mean, obviously, you're working
Yeah.
at a practical level, and you're having real wins.
Yeah.
And so how do we go about sharing that like properly? I mean, is it Reddit? Is there I mean, what is the sharing mechanism for this? I mean, other than a
Yeah.
chatbot.
No, I
Okay,
know.
maybe it'll all be chat based,
You
but
know?
how do we start to share like the positive things that are coming out
Mm,
or the concerns that we have so that we can begin to
yeah.
coalesce?
I mean, I think one of the reasons why I'm even here is because the power of LinkedIn, right? That's how I knew about Inside Jam and then, signed up for the keynote. And that was even how we even got connected was through LinkedIn. I think it's such a powerful space to share information, to share wins, to share concerns. I think there's so much power in building community. And that's certainly one of the biggest spaces that I'm in to not only share the work that I'm doing, but also elevate the work of others that are in this space and using this platform. I think there's a lot of opportunities for tech for good, right? Sharing knowledge and information. I also learned through LinkedIn, a company called Binti. Binti has a partnership and a contract with Anthropic that is now across 36 states for social workers and child welfare agencies. That they have now a platform for child welfare agencies for social workers to support with the AI scribe component, helping with case management. And it's like a partnership, right, between human service workers, social workers, and AI technology to make things more efficient. Because again, casework and doing crisis assessment, I don't ever see that being, and maybe I'm too naive or too optimistic, but I have a hard time thinking that a robot's gonna go into, maybe it's a robot companion going into a home doing a crisis assessment with child welfare services. But I think there's still like a need for a human connection, this kind of human service sort of work. I more so see, these tools really helping alongside with administrative work, especially in the social work field. But I do see like real partnerships and real opportunities in this. And Binti and Anthropic is one of those sort of partnerships that I've seen recently that has made traction on LinkedIn. How we can sort of raise awareness of tech for good, what's sort of happening in this space. Um, I'm trying to think of what I know the power of social media, and I think just the power of media, sort of sharing this news and opportunities with others. And that's why I go to podcasts, raise the platforms. Why I'm even doing this kind of work because I do want to share this knowledge and information.
Well, so one of the things I like to talk about and end with here is what makes us human.
Mm,
And I always fall back on our emotion. So that's what makes us ultimately human. And in the end, to your point around social work, it's can a chatbot sit quietly with someone? I have my father's in a nursing home.
yeah,
Um, can you sit with someone, you know, that can't be that can't be replicated.
right.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are with regard to what makes us
Yeah, I
unique.
agree. The emotions and empathy, I think being able to be empathic and somewhat with someone else, perspective taking of truly genuinely understanding what they're going through because you're also human as well too, and you had that shared experience. Even if I didn't go through what you went through, but there's a level of compassion, understanding, empathy, that I'm able to recognize that and feel that emotion. Chatbots just can't feel that emotion that same way, can't bring that empathy into that space, can't hold your hand if you're like having a really difficult moment or struggling through grief. And I'm opening another can of worms too, but there's even a platform where you could put your loved one in an AI portal then who's died and who's passed away, that you could still have conversation with them and revive them, right? I just think, ooh, like it's not real. You're not really talking to that person anymore, right? It's AI. That's not a human, right? And that can't replace like the connection, the feeling, the touch, the what makes us like humanity. And I'm really grateful to be in the social work profession. I know a profession is going to change, but I really hope that it's that empathy, humanity, human-centered work that we do with the communities that we serve across the globe, the clients that we work with face to face, that's really going to carry us through this next wave of technology revolution with AI.
Well, this has been a tremendous conversation. I appreciate your thoughts, and I'm so glad to have connected with you, and
Yeah.
would love to have another extended conversation, because I think what we need to not lose sight of is how humans are going to fit in this future, and also all the things that we can use this technology for that will benefit us,
Mhm.
rather than be genuinely concerned about how it's going to negatively impact us, which is not the only conversation I want to have.
Yes.
So thanks very much for the time, and best of luck with
Thank you. Yeah.
the AI social worker.
Thank you so much. Take care.